Are disappearing messages a smart way to protect privacy or a risk to your child's online safety? Welcome back to Family Cyber Tips Daily, your go-to source for keeping your family safe online. Today we are diving into disappearing messages, as I promised yesterday. Disappearing messages is a feature many apps now offer. But is this a privacy win or a hidden risk for kids? Let's explore. First, we'll look at what disappearing messages really are. Disappearing messages automatically delete after a set time. This can be minutes, hours, or at times even days. Apps like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and Snapchat all have this feature. I'm sure you've seen like a timer on the avatar or profile picture of your, contacts. I've always wondered whether you were as intrigued as I was and now am, okay? And generally, when you have this enabled, it seems to give, I use the word seems advisedly, it seems to give users more control over their digital footprint. And so it got me thinking perhaps I should, investigate this a little more, certainly in the context of cybersecurity as it pertains to the family. We shouldn't just be enabling a feature and not wonder what it's really doing. Is it actually affording us the privacy or protection that is announced in, the help information on these apps? And so it was vital for me to do that so that I can explain it to you, so that you know that you are really getting the protection that's been promised, okay? Let's look at the pros first of disappearing messages, okay? We'll look at the benefits for those who are wondering what pros could possibly be, okay? So what are the pros of disappearing messages? And the first is enhanced privacy, okay? That's certain. It helps keep your conversations confidential by removing messages after a certain period. The second will be that it reduces what I term digital clutter. So you no longer have old messages piling up in chats because they disappear. And that should be a good thing, certainly for folks who have disk space issues. A third will be better security. Disappearing messages limits exposure of sensitive information. That's if it's enabled. It will limit exposure of sensitive information if your device, God forbid, is hacked or stolen. Okay? So those are the pros. Now let's look at the disadvantages or the cons of disappearing messages. And this is the one that I believe should benefit most of you, even though it's a con. But there's this false sense of security that once you have it enabled, hey, I'm incognito, no one can touch me. And generally that means that people might think messages are gone forever. But like we mentioned yesterday, the internet does not have a delete key. Folks can still take screenshots of what you are, sharing. All right? Screenshots or screen recordings can still capture the information you're sharing. So having a timer or having the disappearing messages enabled, really, it only works for folks who don't know otherwise. Because I just take a picture, bam, I have it. No timer, it's there until I delete it. or do whatever with it, okay? So there's a false sense of security that folks think, that folks have, thinking, that their messages are gone forever. A second con or disadvantage of disappearing messages, certainly for teens, is that they may use disappearing messages to send harmful or inappropriate content. And this is a cyberbullying risk, all right? God forbid, again, your teen decides to send a message to his acquaintances or friends, and they're harmful or inappropriate. And he or she will now think that there's no record of that message because he or she has disappearing messages enabled. All right, so that's a huge con. A third will be parental monitoring challenge. Folks generally use parental controls to, monitor what their kids are getting up to. Now, if your young one has disappearing messages enabled, you will not see the messages after a certain period of time, usually short time, because they get deleted. And so that will make you struggle to track their online interactions, making it harder for you, the caregiver or parent, to spot potential dangers. Okay? So those would be the cons. Well, there's a section in this whole bit that bit disturbing, but hey, I'll share it anyhow. Now, so what can parents really do? Your young one has enabled disappearing messages on these platforms, WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and Snapchat. What can you do as a parent? Okay? Now, education is golden. Really, it is golden. And we've talked about communication, but you've got to educate the kids. You've got to educate the kids on a hands-on basis. Teach them that disappearing messages are not truly gone and that they can still be saved. We talked about the risk, the false sense of security, where your kid has been naughty and sent a message and confirmed that the message has been deleted in the time frame that they've allocated. And you now give them this seriously bad news that, is not truly gone. All of a sudden, they are now aware that messages can be, screenshotted or recorded, that they can still be saved. So you've got to educate them so that they understand that perhaps this is not the right thing to do. All right? Education is really important. Another thing is set boundaries. We're into boundaries. You're the parent, they're the child. If your child uses apps with this feature, discuss appropriate usage and set guidelines. You are the parent in the home and you must do this with your child. Yes, you may be put off setting parental controls because of this feature, but enable it anyhow, okay? Enable parental control. Some apps allow settings to disable disappearing messages for certain chats. And that's definitely a plus, okay? So those would be what we would ask you to do as a parent or caregiver to address this whole disappearing messages enabling feature. It's important that that's done. Now, I took some time and, okay, your young one is enabling this feature because they don't want their messages doing ABCD. Perhaps they have very little disk space, so they want to reduce clutter and things like that. Those are genuine reasons why some would add this feature. But there's some cynical reasons why our young ones may use this feature, or why people in general. Let's sort of open it up. Disappearing messages can be used for reasons beyond privacy, and this is sad to even share with you, but I'm bringing you up to speed so you can understand and make a decision, an informed decision about the disappearing messages feature on these platforms. Okay? So they could be used for reasons beyond privacy and security, some of which, like I've mentioned, are cynical and concerning. Let me share a few. Some would enable this feature to avoid accountability. Some individuals use disappearing messages to communicate in a way that leaves no trace. You know, before the days of parental controls and all that, there was a ho-ha about deleting your browsing history so that your folks or the caregiver that has jurisdiction over you cannot tell where you've been. All right? This is no different. So you have folks who use disappearing messages, to have communications with their peers in a way that leaves no trace, making it easier to deny or avoid responsibility for what was said at the time. And this is especially common in workplace misconduct, secret dealings, or personal disputes where someone wants plausible deniability. Okay? Now, avoiding accountability is a huge no-no in the family setting. All members of the family have to be accountable, certainly as it pertains to the internet. So anyone in the family who gets up to this is up to no good, okay? Another thing that the research has shown is that disappearing messages could be used, again, we're talking cynical, in the cynical picture. They use it to facilitate cyberbullying or harassment. Bullies or online predators may use disappearing messages to send harmful, threatening, or inappropriate content without leaving a record. Victims have a harder time proving what was said, making it difficult to report abuse. I'm spending this time to develop a picture so that you can see how rough and how dangerous the internet really is, and why some kids who are not internet wise should have no business engaging on these platforms. Okay? Another thing another cynical approach will be hiding infidelity or deceptive behavior. Some people, God forbid, kids who I'm connected to or with, could use disappearing messages to conceal secret relationships or activities from partners, friends, or family members. And this is often seen in cases of infidelity or engaging in, illicit relationships that you, the parents, frowns upon. It's also seen in cases of manipulation or maintaining multiple personalities online. Frightening stuff, really frightening stuff. Some folks, and I use the word folks because it's a big spread. Could be the kid, could be the friend, the cousin, whatever it is. They could be using disappearing messages to evade law enforcement, the police, or regulation. Criminals, scammers, and fraudsters may use disappearing messages to conduct illegal activities, is what we've picked up from the internet. Activities such as fraud, drug dealing, or coordinating cyber crimes. I'm drawing a picture. Since the messages in disappearing messages auto-deletes, there's very little evidence left for authorities to track their actions. So you can see how this is effective for that narrative. Another would be avoiding data collections or surveillance. Some activists, whistleblowers, or journalists use disappearing messages to protect themselves from government surveillance, corporate tracking, or hackers. Now, if they're doing this, imagine if your young one gets wind of this and wants to do the same thing, behind closed doors. And whilst this can be a valid reason, it can also be misused by people trying to evade legal scrutiny. Another one, perhaps this will be for the older ones that we have still have jurisdiction over, will be preventing leaks in business or politics. So some use disappearing messages, companies or political figures, they use it to ensure sensitive discussions don't get leaked. So while this can protect business strategies, it also raises concerns about transparency, especially in government affairs. So ultimately, all that the disappearing messages does is all that I've shared with you. Now, if you embrace all that information, you can see that your young one being exposed to these, the information I've just shared, they could be using it or, seeking to use it to do exactly those bad things. And we don't want that for them. Okay? So, as a final thought, while disappearing messages have legitimate uses, which we've shared, earlier with you, they can also be exploited for unethical or illegal purposes. This is why it's important to educate your kids, your teens on responsible internet use. Encourage open discussion as a parent and caregiver, and ensure that they understand that disappearing doesn't always mean gone forever. Okay? Disappearing messages can be helpful, but they also come with the sort of risk that I have shared with you today. The key is awareness and guidance. Okay? So what do you think? Should your kids use disappearing messages? Let's engage. Tell me in the comments where you are at, with this feature enabled on your young ones' devices. Please don't forget to like the content. I hope you really did like it, and share it with your friends and family so that they can be aware. We are 29 subscribers away from the 1K. I spoke about it yesterday and I said, please join in the celebration by subscribing, and there was some movement. Please subscribe to the Family Cyber Clinic channel, YouTube channel, for more family-friendly tech insights, okay? Until tomorrow, I've been your host, Lawrence Edem. God bless and goodbye.